Hello and welcome to Walpole United WFC. Hello and welcome to Walpole United with me, John Foster, MUFC. Got lots to get through tonight. We'll want to talk a bit about the Old Trafford 20,000 in attendance. I want to get Adam's thoughts on that particular number. I want to talk a little bit about the Lionesses, not just the squad selection, but more importantly, the fact that the final got sold out within half an hour. And also the game yesterday, Barcelona, Real Madrid, breaking all types of records, getting 90,000 at a women's game is absolutely huge. And then obviously we'll end the show talking about the two Manchester clubs going head-to-head for that final Champions League spot. So before we get started, Adam, thank you very much for joining us. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, John. Good to be back on again.
Awesome. Yeah, I know you've been on 2 or 3 times before. It is like few and far between. However, we do really appreciate you coming on. I know how busy you are, and you're definitely the right man for this particular show because I know that you've been writing articles on it as well. So, I just want to get your thoughts on some of those topics that we've just mentioned. Connor, you okay, mate?
Yep, all good, all good.
I know that you've been busy. I know you've been very busy. I've been reading your WhatsApp messages away from YouTube as well. So, thanks for coming on. I do know how busy you are with your work as well. Adam, I know that you've just been tweeted out about the Arsenal game. Do you want to just give us a bit of a heads up on that one before we get cracking?
Yeah, so Arsenal are playing Wolfsburg at the moment. It's 1-0 to Wolfsburg. I think Arsenal probably haven't played well in the first half, so I could see Wolfsburg winning this one. I think Joe Rald scoring against them will hurt for some Arsenal fans, but I don't know. Having no English teams in the semi-finals of the Champions League would be a bad thing yet again with how strong the WSL is. But, who knows what will happen.
Well, that's a good point, to be fair. I mean, hello to everybody in the comments, by the way. It is because when you look at some of the players coming across into the WSL now, they are the best in the world, breaking record fees. Pernilla Harder a couple of 3 years ago, and other players coming across as well. And it is really good to see. We got some good managers in our WSL. We talk a lot about the publicity that we give our players and Sky TV. Why is it, Adam, that you think that we just can't break through? And I'm talking a little bit about Chelsea here as well. They got to the final last year and didn't quite get anywhere near this year. What is it? Is it a mentality thing, consistency thing? What do you think it is, Adam?
I'm never really sure. I think Chelsea probably had a bit of bad luck at points with like the. I'm throwing my mind back here to what it was, but I think it was Wolfsburg they were playing, and they had that sort of COVID crisis, if you will. Even though they didn't play well, I think there's also teams just not really used to the European football. Like if you look at the ones who are there at the moment in the semis, already confirmed it's PSG and Barca, who've been doing it for many years in the women's game and doing well. Lyon, maybe, or it could be Juve who go through because they won the first leg. So maybe it's a case of having these teams getting lots of regular games against the top European teams, because at the moment they only have for an Arsenal, they only really get City, Chelsea, United, maybe you have proper tests of them, which only come around once in a blue moon, or if it's the cup, it's every other week. But yeah, it seems to be the case that they play very well in the league and then just can't emulate that against these bigger teams in Europe.
Yeah, kind of. We spoke about this at lower leagues as well, like the lower tiers. Regular competitive football. If you're winning away with the league, and then all of a sudden you come up across a Champions League or a higher tier, sometimes it can be very difficult to adjust, can't it? Do you reckon that's something like that could be the case with some of the English teams?
Yes and no. I was going to put a different spin and say that maybe English sides are struggling because the talent is more distributed across the WSL than it is maybe in other leagues. In terms of the Spanish league and the French league and so on. I know you've got the top clubs, and Barcelona, obviously a great example of that. But maybe because the WSL, the top players now, you look at Everton, prime example last summer, players are turning, when we had Willie Kirk on, you're talking about, players turning down the likes of Bayern Munich and Man City to go to Everton. So maybe the talent's more distributed in England. So that's maybe why they struggle. I don't know. Ultimately, nobody knows because knockout football is completely different to league format. So, it's a different proposition altogether. And it's always going to be tough because you're talking about world-class sides. It's never going to be easy when you get into the Champions League. So, yeah, I just think maybe because it's more distributed and you've got the likes of, like I said, Barcelona are always going to be difficult to beat on any day. Talking PSG and, Lyon obviously lost the first leg, but maybe expect them to go through as well. But it's tough. I just think that the WSL as a whole is probably growing faster because of the talent distribution up and down the league. It's not just the top 2 or 3 anymore. You're looking at 4 or 5 teams now. Whereas you look at the other leagues, you talk about Spain, it's Barca, Madrid, obviously. Looking at France, PSG, Lyon, you're looking at 1 or 2 sides, whereas I think the WSA, you're looking at more than 2 teams now.
Yeah, do you want to come in on that point, Adam? Because something that I've not really thought of, but it is a possible area to look at there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's a good one, to be honest. Real in the league even aren't super strong. Yeah, you look at Barca and just the way they dominate Spanish football. They, as a squad, they've got players there who have played for Barca for a very long time, which helps them. Of course, it is quite helpful when you've got like an Alexis Putellas so you can have in your team and just tear up a game. But there are so many world-class players in the WSL. I think it is a good point that when you've got them and they're spread across so many teams, you've not got that one team with so much dominant and such a good side. But I still think, Chelsea, for example, on paper, probably better than Wolfsburg, probably better than PSG, probably better than Lyon in the current state, but then just couldn't do it. Even, I was there for the home Man City game against Real in like the pre-qualifiers. City were probably the better team, but had quite a few injured players and got beaten at the start. So I think it's just a case of the teams just not having that regular European football as well. And that because Wolfsburg are so strong, for example, and have been doing it for 15 years in Europe, they know how to play in Europe and how to do it well and how to adapt to those like European challenges. A lot of the WSL players don't, and it might be their first or second time ever in the Champions League, especially if they're the sort of a very good player abroad who maybe weren't at a Barca or whatever and they've signed. So, yeah, it's a case of having players, I think, who are used to that just really, really high level of football. But again, being a team like Barca with a squad as strong as you have, they're going to compete very, very well with anyone because they're just absolutely massive.
We'll come back to the European game towards like the middle and end of the show, but we want to talk about Old Trafford first. So, am I right in thinking that you was there, Adam?
Yeah, I was.
Yeah, I thought so. 20,000. We'll start off with that first. The attendance. First of all, what did you make of that number? And then me and Conor will kind of give our thoughts on it as well.
It's 2 points really on that number. In the grand scheme of things, it's a very good number to attend a WSL game in the 2021-22 season. If you compared it to all-time record WSL attendances, there are 5 higher, I think. It might be 4, but they were all that sort of autumn of 2019 when you had the World Cup, and then that created a whole women's football bounce across the country, hadn't it? Really, I think as someone who wasn't massively into the women's game before the World Cup, just seeing the amount of support increase in it and just general media coverage, there were so many people like, right, I've got to go to a women's game, and people started doing that, and attendances at general league games started going up, and then COVID hit, and games were only on the FA player, and it was like plummeted straight back down and lost all that. So to have 20,000 fans there without that tournament bounce is really good. But at the same time, I was hearing numbers from people I trust at United very much earlier in the week, like 25,000 tickets gone. Friday, 28.5. I think they were thinking about like 30 by the time of the game, there was someone who said 31.5 on social media, so it might have been about that amount. So to only have 20,000 turn up is a bit of a pain, but that happens when you're selling the tickets at a cheaper price because, when it's an early game, you wake up in the morning and think, actually, I've spent £6 on this, I might do something else. Whereas if it's a men's game, you're not going to have those people who have spent £50 on a ticket saying, I'm not going to go, or I'm going to do something for Mother's Day instead. They're going to be thinking, what, I've got to have to go. So it's a very good attendance. It's a shame that not everybody turned up. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it was a very good day. And as someone put, there were a few of us talking about it. It did seem more than 20,000 there. But, 20,200 was the official attendance we were given. It was just, with the way that bottom tier holds between 40 and 45. And yes, there were a lot of gaps, and there was that big gap where like the Barmy Army were. It's still, it felt more than 20. I'll say that. It was a great day on the whole, just for United as the amount of support that they've given to the women's team for that. And, the young fans, and not just young fans, actually. It's always young fans we talk about in the women's game. But there's so many Manchester students, those sort of type of people who were going who probably hadn't experienced a women's game before. They're the ones with the money who were probably going to say, you know what, I might get the bus into Lee on a Sunday and go to the game. There's so much time spent chasing those young girls and families, and yes, that's part of it. I was speaking to some higher up person, and they mentioned that, and then a few journalists were a bit like, well, why aren't you going after all the other types of people? It's very much focused on the one group. So to see such a wide variety of people as well at the ground is something I think that was really important.
Yeah, 100%. We can get into that detail as well. Just before Connor comes in, just my thoughts first of all on the actual number. Very similar to you. There's pros and cons there. I think the biggest drawback for me would have been the fact the actual team that we played. Unfortunately, I don't think Everton promoted it enough. I don't know if I think it might have been yourself, Adam, who tweeted it. Everton put a tweet out saying there's no game this weekend. And I don't know if you was the one that jumped on it, but one of the journalists did. Basically.
Yeah, I think it might have been Leicester or somebody put out a tweet like that, but there wasn't a lot from Everton. I know that.
Yeah. No, there wasn't much at all. And if Everton had brought the same amount of fans that we took to the Etihad, a couple of years ago when there was 33,000, then all of a sudden, you might have seen a bit more of an attendance if it was Man United versus Liverpool, Man United versus City. This is the kind of angle I was getting at. But 20,000, I think, for a Man United Everton game, middle of the season. Well, I'd say middle of the season, pretty much. It's I don't think it was too bad, to be fair. I think the promotion building up to it, the final week and a half was amazing. I think if we started that a little bit earlier, that would have been even better. It was great to see the amount of fans who have never been to Old Trafford before, who followed the women's team but never gone to Old Trafford. They was turning up. And then, of course, vice versa, fans who are used to going to Old Trafford but never watching the women's team. So we saw a lot of that. The idea now is obviously to try and encourage them to come back. And starting this week, it looks like, United have continued to keep on talking about the women's team. And I've seen some new banners go up outside Old Trafford today that includes the women's team as well. So, that's good news in my eyes. Connor, your thoughts on that 20,000 attendance?
Yeah, I'd be interested to know what the percentages are in terms of how many sold to how many attended. I'd like to see that number in terms of how many actually sold. Well, there's a couple of numbers I'd like to know. The club would never officially publish it to the public, but I'm sure behind the scenes they will know. But how many they actually sold, how many they gave away, and furthermore onto that, how many turned up from everything that they gave away? Because like Adam said there, all of the numbers was 25 plus, and then on the day, there was a couple of journalists that said 31. So we kind of I expected high 20s, not gonna lie. I thought with everyone saying 25 plus, you thought it's got to be that. I don't believe that. I mean, it might be the case, but I refuse to believe that United sold close to 30k and 10k didn't turn up. I don't think it's. I think maybe the club misled some. I don't know. I don't know where these people got the figures from, but I refuse to believe that 10k didn't turn up. I think the sale number was probably lower. probably
maybe
closer
like a
to 20.
giveaway. Like, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably closer to 21, 22, and then 1 or 2K didn't show because that's I don't know. We'll never know publicly anyway. Yeah, it was weird because I tried to work out the attendance based on the ticket. I was really sad. I was looking on the ticket map the day before, and I worked out that the lower tier of Old Trafford's about 40K. So if I was looking at each block, I was like, okay, if that's sold out and that's sold out, trying to work it out, and it did work out to about close to 30. So I was thinking, okay, we're expecting a big number. And then when they read that attendance at 20,000, I was like, that can't be right. But then when you look around the ground, if you look at some of the pictures we've got, most of the quads, like most of the corners where the corner flags are, were pretty empty. You look in our section, J stand, that holds close to 4K, and there was about 100, 120 of us, maybe. So, yeah, a little bit disappointing, but I think if you look at the bigger picture, 20K is still a lot. And like I said on previous shows, if you get 100 of those to come to Lee, it's done its job, hasn't it? So, yeah, it's a bit lower than I thought, but I think it's a bit lower than everyone thought just because of all the stuff that was coming out the week before. Because everyone was saying how high it was going to be, and then 20K seems like. Whereas if everyone was saying, "Oh, we're expecting 15, we're expecting 16," and then 20 turn up, it sounds better. But if everyone's saying we're expecting close to 30 and it's 20, it sounds worse, doesn't it?
Well, don't forget, just like literally about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we was hearing 9 or 10,000, weren't we? And I think originally, the plan was to get between 20 and 25. It seemed to take a while for people to kind of publicise that kind of number, but literally just 3 or 4 weeks ago, we was hearing 9 or 10,000, weren't we? Adam, you started talking a little bit about it, the actual the day itself. Turning up at Old Trafford, it was great for fans because obviously we know the players have played there once before, but the fans hadn't seen their team play there. It was kind of described it a bit like a carnival. I keep on calling it a bit of an event. I guess that's what you get at Old Trafford, which is a good thing. It's a proper day out. Just what were your thoughts on the actual atmosphere as you was walking into the stadium and what you could see and the amount of effort that Man United put into Old Trafford before the match day and actually on the match day?
Yeah, so someone who has started now working a few men's match days, it felt very similar to an extent. It wasn't like, I know some people have been there for like the men's youth games, which have had like 8, 9, whatever, and it have felt very different. It was much like, right, you're going into the car parks here, they are rammed. The entire like walkways around the ground. There are loads of people there. You don't always get that at grounds. It can be quite sparse going under like the Munich tunnel sort of area. Lots there. That was very full. It seemed, a very good atmosphere for the day. It really did seem, like a proper football match was going on, where sometimes these occasions can just seem like, I don't know, like it's a reserve team, if you like the fans and the whole occasion isn't really being treated the same. It's just a bit of like a lower thing. But, from my point of view, for example, the over-the-top stewarding for media getting stopped like 3 times to say your bag's too big and having to show them proof and all that sort of stuff. That's evidence of a game being treated properly, if you get what I mean. But it was good, and inside the ground, it seemed good. I only saw the bits from just outside the press box where people were, and maybe I saw more Everton fans than you if you're in a different bit. But they did seem to actually be quite a few there. But the whole day seemed great. Talking to Susie Rack, who travelled up from London to cover it for the Guardian, she said on her 8:10 train, in pretty much every single carriage, there were people with United shirts on going to the game from Euston to Piccadilly, which is what you get on a main Saturday men's match day. So that is really nice to see, and it felt like a proper football match, not something else, which quite often these games do when you have your Emirates games and you've got a little bit of one stand full, or I could say, for example, the Alan Clark Cup matches, some of them where you had Spain, Germany, that I was at Molineux, you couldn't tell there was a football game on, or that wasn't Molineux, actually. The Molineux one was Spain, Canada, that was the same. Yeah. Spain, Germany at Middlesbrough, you definitely couldn't tell. They didn't even give an official attendance to us. We counted ourselves at about 70. which shows that this was a big game to have the 20,000 there, that whole massive like event day feeling. It felt like something where you would go spend an entire day, not just a lot of the time where Lee, it's go try and find a car parking spot, get in the ground, get out straight away. It felt like people were going for the day and to enjoy it.
Yeah. Just before being kind of back in on that one, I just wondered how it kind of differs to maybe some of the other big games that you've been to in the women's games. So when Man City, I don't know if you've ever been to a Man City Etihad when they've had a game on there, or like I say Emirates or Stamford Bridge or anything like that. Have you seen much comparison in that sense? That was for you, sorry, Adam.
Oh, right, sorry.
Sorry, mate, yeah.
I missed out on the Etihad one. I was down watching England's men actually at Wembley, but I haven't been to London for many either, so this isn't very helpful. But I did the FA Cup final at Wembley, and that felt very similar. That was 40,000, so more, but in a ground like Wembley, around the whole sort of Wembley way. It felt like a very similar event day, streets packed, that sort of thing. I could compare it to like Man City versus Everton at Goodison earlier in the season, where that was quite quiet. There were people going to a football game, but it didn't feel like many, even though I think there were about 8,000 or whatever in the end, and Goodison isn't the biggest of grounds, and Everton aren't the best supported of teams. That didn't really have that same feeling of United, where it was like, this is a very big day and a big football game.
Okay. Connie, just your thoughts on what Adam's been saying there?
Yeah, I think it's a United thing, without sounding biased. I think because United fans are different in the women's game. If you look at every team we've played, every stadium we go to, there's a look like when we start chanting, like, what are you doing? So yeah, I think it's slowly evolving. When we went down to Chelsea, obviously Kings Meadow, the atmosphere was good. Arsenal again, it felt like a game. But we've been to some grounds this season where it is dead quiet, and I think that's the nature maybe of the clubs and the atmosphere that they've got there. And you need a supporters club, or you need some group of people or group of fans to start it. Otherwise, nobody will. Like obviously Chelsea and Arsenal have got that now. And yeah, Old Trafford just felt how it should do. That felt like Old Trafford on a match day normally, in terms of outside the ground. I think I said to you, John, I was amazed at how many people were on the forecourt outside the ground. That felt like Old Trafford as it should be. Yeah, so I think it was weird for me because I said all along that, yes, it's an event. And it comes back to, I guess, the planning of the game, but it was still a must-win for us. So there was a lot of fans outside the ground that were going, yeah, it's, kind of, oh, yeah, it's great to see a women's game. It's good, first time and all this. Whereas I think a lot of us fans that go week in, week out, we were quite nervous going, we still need to win this. Yes, it's a day out on Old Trafford, but we've got 5 games here. We need to win all of them. So I think as soon as we got in the ground, yep, great. Old Trafford, take it all in. And it was like, right, now it's focus on the game, get behind the team and let's focus on the game, because it was a must-win as well. So it was a weird kind of atmosphere. And like I said, I don't think it helped, obviously, going 1-0 down. But I say I don't think it helped. I actually think that added to it, because I think if we'd have scored 2 or 3 early on and made it an easy game, kind of 3-4 goals up, I think the atmosphere maybe wouldn't have been what it was. But the fact we went 1-0 down, she ran in front of the Stretford end and started celebrating in front, gets booed as well, which I found quite interesting. That kind of, I think I said to you, John, didn't I? Like, as soon as she scored that, it was almost like, right, okay, focus now, game on kind of attitude, and that kind of raised our voices as well. So, and not just us, the ones that usually sing, all around the ground, I think started to pick up on that as well.
Yeah, I agree with the timings of the goals, absolutely, because if we had scored first, obviously we would have cheered that, and then there would have been a less of a cheer on the second goal and a less of a cheer on the third goal, in regards to relief, because the relief, you won't have that relief there, whereas, the equaliser meant so much to us, the second one even meant even more to us, and because we know what we like is holding on to a lead at the moment, the fact that we have difficulty doing that, the third one was equally as important. So for us, it was ecstatic right the way up until like the final whistle, weren't we? Just a question, Adam, regarding next season then, like, would you kind of like to see these games happen more often? I know a lot of people are split. You know, I'm one of these people who thinks maybe one game a season, 2 maximum at the main grounds fit for one club. Some people like it more to ride the game because it's so well profiled, but too much of a good thing could be a bad thing. What are your thoughts on maybe next season and what we should do going forward at Old Trafford?
Yeah, exactly what you said. I think, for example, Arsenal have overdone it with the Emirates. You know, it's great to have the women's team playing at the Emirates, but when it's something that happens quite often, you lose those people who will go to see the women's team at the Emirates because it's, you know, it doesn't happen that often. And you end up then with your lower attendances and it makes the whole day worse.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, if it can be a once a season thing, you know, for example, for United next year, stick the derby during an international break.
Liverpool, I want Liverpool.
To do that. And having the derby at Old Trafford, well, that'll do it well, wouldn't it? You know, that'll get fans turning out. And then that may help, you know, if they plan it right sort of time to then have maybe another home game at least straight after or something like that to then push people to go to that. I think that would be important. Next season will be a weird one because we just do not know what the Euros will do. If England do well at the Euros, it'll do massively for the game in the country. If England don't do well at the Euros, I'm not sure how big the impact will be. It's like, you know, with the final selling out, great. I think if England don't get to the final, it might not be as good as that. But, you know, it's if England do well at the Euros, maybe it could be a case of having quite a few games a season at Old Trafford because you would have the appetite from supporters to go. That's the thing. But, you know, I asked Matt Skinner the question after the game, and I'm very much of the opinion. I think he sort of is too. That Lee is more important than those games at Old Trafford. If, like Connor said, if you get 20,000 going and 100 extra of them to Lee, great. Realistically, you want to be increasing that attendance a lot at Lee because 2,000 for a game of football, you know, it's not really sustainable at any sort of level. The attendances are just across the game on the whole need to be higher. There are a lot of things that can be done for that. I think there's a lot of bad marketing. You know, there might be teams like I'm trying to think, you know, your Arsenals, for example, who do a lot of marketing and may tweet about it on the men's page, but actually all that then is you see a tweet and you scroll straight past it. Whereas like the derby at the CFA earlier this season, they did good things of like they had Snapchat adverts and they had a uni days offer. So for students in Manchester, you could like get cheaper tickets and those sorts of things. And they really were marketing the game. Then you see a lot of them keep coming back. And then they said, right, well, here are season tickets. They did that last season. They've done that in the past. And that's another important thing. I think if teams plug those season tickets earlier, get fans in, have a big game like that, then plug your season tickets, someone might have enjoyed it and said, you know what, maybe I'll spend 50 quid on a season ticket. And then once you've done that, you're going for the entire season no matter what, because you spent the big amount of money and you feel you have to, even if you don't. And once you build that habit, that's the important thing. You can't just have it be little bits incrementally. You need people going and then having that habit of being a week in, week out United women fan at Lee. And then more will keep doing that. That's what builds that really sustainable growth that's needed. I'd say in a couple of years' time, you want Lee to have 5,000 plus in. I'd like that in 3 years for every game.
Yeah.
Your bigger games pretty much sold out, apart from, of course, that standing stand, but pretty much sold out.
Yeah, 100%. And I agree. And it's funny that you should say what Mark Skinner says, because I'm sure Casey felt the same way when she was there. She was saying, look, you know, let's sell out Lee Sports Village first, and then we can start looking at moving on. And, you know, I think that's the right thing to say. But I think it's like, I think it's the right thing for a manager to say about the home ground. But also, I think it is the right thing to do. You know, just going straight to Old Trafford too often, it just wouldn't quite work out for me. As exciting as that day was, no, Lee Sports Village is our home, and you know, and I understand, you know, like the people who don't drive, they have difficulty getting there, but that's down to the club to support them. You know, if Lee Sports Village is where we play our games, then I'd expect the supporters to want to go and to raise a question with the club saying, okay, what are you going to do about helping us get there then if they can't travel there? You mentioned the Lionesses, Adam. Sticking with yourself on that one then. 4 Man United players called up. We'll talk about those, and also the tickets being sold out for the final. Sorry. So yeah, just massive for the game. I do agree. If England don't make the Euros final, I don't think we'll get anywhere near that. But could be completely wrong. It does depend on who it is. It does. But Adam, sticking with yourself on that one then. Were you surprised that the cup final sold out?
I'm not sure. It's always the case just in major tournament finals in general, men or women, that the final does well with selling out because everyone wants to go and thinks, oh, well, if my country's there, I want to get a ticket. And then if the home nation doesn't get there, then it doesn't end up as well, which, won't help. This could be the biggest ever Euros final attendance. It could equally not do that well. But, Netherlands, for example, at theirs in 2017, very well. I'm trying to think of some recent men's examples that have been any good. There haven't been any hosts really who've done well at home off the top of my head. But you need that sort of host doing well, because it'll be host fans who are excited about a tournament in their country and say, oh, I want to go to Wembley and see my team there. There are fewer numbers of fans who travel internationally in the women's game than in the men's. Actually, in the men's, it's pretty awful, a lot of the international travel. Apart from England fans, you look at the amount that some bring. That's just how the international game is. It's one of them where in the women's, you have the Dutch, and I can't really think of any others who will bring a sizable number over. Maybe, I know, an Italy or someone from Italians living in London. Apart from that, I can't think of many who will bring fans from abroad. Spain could get people going because of Spain, but equally, you look at that Arnold Clark Cup and you think, right, okay, maybe people don't have the appetite in this country if it's not England.
I think people are expecting England there, aren't they? And I think they kind of look, maybe obviously the Euros for the men's. Obviously England made their way to the final there, and how good it would be to see England in 2 finals back to back on home turf, obviously at Wembley. Whether that's going to materialise, it doesn't always work out in the way that you think. I think it just shows that the demand is there for a start, because I think the rest of the tournament is looking like it's selling out as well. But I think the one thing that international football has the advantage of, it gives, say you're either a new fan or even if you're a regular fan of just say Man United, it gives you a chance to watch players that you're not necessarily used to seeing live. So you go and watch Spain or you go and watch Netherlands, you'll see some players that you don't get to see in the WSL, for example, world-class players. So, and for the price and things like that, and you've got some really exciting ties in there, especially in the later rounds when you start to see these, the better teams that will progress on. So I'm not really surprised that it's sold out, because I think when you look at a final, like I just said, you're guaranteed to see 2 world-class teams in there, and you're at least going to see players, like Adam just said there, the travelling fans it's not brilliant across an international stage, maybe with the exception of a couple of countries, but you think that final, you're going to see 2 world-class teams from players that you're not necessarily used to seeing live, but in particular, you might see them on TV occasionally. So yeah, it doesn't surprise me, but it is good because it shows the demand is there. And when there's proof that the demand is there, the supply will go up. So if FA, FIFA, UEFA, whoever, start seeing that people, like, I know we're going to get on to obviously the new camp as well, but when they start seeing these tournaments selling out at rapid time, the supply will be better. So they'll start promoting things early. There'll be more people, and start pushing other areas as well. So the supply will only go up if the demand is there. And it seems like the demand is growing, particularly in this country. I think you see across the board, with, you mentioned Old Trafford there and some of the England internet, the Lioness games as well. It's going up. So the demand in England is growing.
I think Elliot makes a good point here, and we're not talking about thousands of fans here, but we're talking like a few dozen, maybe a few hundred across the whole country, across all clubs. But there will be fans who are going to games just to watch, specific players. So I know, Ellie or probably a few other United fans have bought tickets to watch Spain, not because they're Spanish fans, but to watch Honor. Holland, Netherlands. We're going to be watching Jackie Ronan. I'm sure Arsenal fans will be doing the same with their players as well. So I think that does help in certain aspects. But again, I don't think you're talking about massive amounts of numbers in regards to club fans going to watch specific teams. I could be wrong, but I think that might be more down to the hundreds more than thousands. Adam, just finishing up with the actual Euros. Can you see England get into a final? Myself personally, I think they've done very well under the new manager, I must admit, but obviously they haven't been tested as much. Maybe semi-finals. I'm thinking they might just miss out, unfortunately, but I think that might be their level. But what are your thoughts, Adam?
Yeah, I haven't got my wall chart yet, which is normally what I like to do in the summer, because that's when I can properly predict if a team's going to make it or not. But we'll definitely make it out the groups. Then it goes, I think it's straight to the quarters in this one. FIFA and UEFA are messing with tournaments, aren't they? And just putting loads of teams in them, so you're never sure. But I think it's quarters where, depending on how things go in other groups, I think there could be a difficult opponent in there. But at the Arnold Clark Cup, England showed actually they can play pretty well against good opponents. Like the Spain team they played at Norwich were pretty good. England were quite changed and they got a draw from it. Mm-hmm. So I think Serena's building a team that can very much play against these big opponents and do all right, whereas under Phil Neville could do well against some of the smaller opponents, but it was maybe a little bit fluky at times. If I say that in the World Cup.
Yeah.
You need that, by the way, for tournament stuff. As someone who I went down to Wembley to watch England's men this summer, wasn't the best a lot of times, but they got results because they got that bit of luck and they had the work ethic and that sort of thing. So I just don't know. It depends how the rest of the draw goes. If you get a Netherlands, Germany, Spain early on, be a real shame. If you get to, I guess, the manager will come out and say, oh, well, you've got to beat these good teams if you need to win the tournament or something like that, because they all do. But you want to try and save them for as late as possible. So it all depends, I think, on how other things go. England are very good.
Yeah.
England, for me, probably second favourites, just behind Spain. I don't think the Netherlands are what they used to be. I don't think Germany are what they used to be either. I don't think France have much of a chance. I don't think Sweden are. I think Sweden are a very good side. Still probably not England level, if you get what I mean.
Yeah.
Apart from that, the rest of the best teams will be like your Canadas, your Americas, maybe Australia in that. So I'd say England are probably the second favourite team for me. I hope they do well from a biased English person's point of view. But let's just wait and see. It all depends on how everyone else's tournament goes. You could have, you could equally have Spain having a shocker of a group and going out. I can't remember if there's a group of death in this one. There are just so many tournaments going on. I get all the countries muddled in my head. But, I feel like there is one really hard group. I don't know if like Germany and Spain are in the same one or one like that. But that's one way you could have a big team go out if you just have a smaller team scrape a draw against them. So who knows what will happen in the tournament? That's the fun of it. It's all just madness for a month, isn't it? You've no idea what's going to actually happen.
And that's the good thing about cup football. It's anything really can happen. Connor, I can see you frantically looking for something. Have you got it in front of you?
Yeah, it is. It's Germany, Spain, Denmark, Finland. So potentially. If like you said there, if Denmark can get a couple of draws in there, Finland maybe. You don't know. I mean, I'm just looking at some of the other groups. Netherlands and Sweden obviously in the same group as well. And then our group, obviously, you'd expect us to top that. Pretty comfortably, you'd expect. But again, you never know. This is what I said earlier. Knockout football's completely different. In a one-off game, you cannot drop the ball. Over a league season, you can afford to drop. Well, not necessarily, but you can get away with an off performance. In knockout football, you're 90 minutes away from being, as it says on the tin, being knocked out. So it's a whole different ball game. And whether the England squad, I think winning the I'm going to call it the glorified friendly cup, a few weeks ago or a few months ago now, I said at the time, that will probably help them because it gives them a taste of winning. So moving forward, that should help them, albeit it wasn't a major tournament, so to speak. It just gives them that belief that in knockout football they can hold their own against some of the best. So
Yeah.
It's who knows? Who knows? Finland could win it. You never know.
4 players that was called up for that Arnold Clark Cup. I think it's the same 4 players that have been called up for United in the upcoming Lionesses game. Zellum, Tooney, Russo and Earps. Then me, Connor and everyone on this show speaks about those 4 players a hell of a lot. Adam, just what's your thoughts on those 4 players, how their season's going, how well they're doing for the Lionesses? Because to me, they're being picked on merit. Not just because they're Man United fans, not just because they're stat padding. Those 4 players have done very well for us this season, I believe. But what's your thoughts on those 4 players?
Yeah, I think all 4 of them deserve to be in the team. I think Mary is probably going to be Serena's first choice goalkeeper. Now, this squad that we're looking at the moment is pretty much going to be the Euro squad. I think maybe Steph Houghton will get back fit and she'll play some sort of role. But apart from that, I can't see many changes. I think Alessia and Ella are players who Serena and the rest of the England setup are going to be looking at and thinking they're going to be there for 10 years. Ellen White hasn't got too long left in a career in the grand scheme of things. And Alessia is a very, very good striker, as her goal showed at the weekend. The way that she took that header for the final one.
Yeah.
It was a proper header. And she can hit the ball really well. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Alessia sort of becoming that main striker. She tried it out a little bit in the Arnold Clark Cup, and I like her there. I'm not a fan of her playing on the wings when Mark does that. I don't get that. Ella, brilliant footballer. So creative, really fits England well, what they're going for. Because I think, especially when Frank Kirby just hasn't been able to hit it off for England, I'm not exactly sure why that is. She's had to play in a couple of roles, but hasn't been able to replicate it for England. Ella Toon stepped up in that role and just been brilliant. And Katie Zellum's one of them where she's just a solid player. You get in that position. Midfield is always going to be a difficult one for these England teams because there are just so many good midfielders who they can pick from. Zellum hasn't actually had too much game time, if you like, but when she has, she's played well. And I think she deserves it. There would possibly be more United players in there, but again, if Millie Turner was fit, she'd probably be in that defence. If Aoife Mannion was fit, she'd probably be in there as well. Maybe over
as well.
Bailey, Jess Carter, those sort of players. Who knows? But yeah, I think all of them really good United players. That's the difference for why they're in. They're in because they are some of the best players that England have. Whereas a few years ago, there were sort of fringe players, United players getting called up. Now, you've got Alessia and Ella and Mary. Yeah, they're 3 who are probably going to be in your starting 11 most games.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I don't really have too much else to add on those. As you said, 4 solid players, Tooney and Russo in particular. We speak about them week in, week out. Russo's only one off Miedemar now in the league. So, why wouldn't she be? You'd expect a fan of both. You'd expect her to be leading the line going into the tournament potentially. Some would argue she's maybe not got enough experience as some of the others, but, on current form, she deserves that spot. Same with Tooney as well. Zellum, I hope she gets some minutes. I think it just shows though with her that she brings more than just her footballing ability. She clearly has something off the pitch that kind of brings some of the players in the squad together because she is constantly selected, but doesn't seem to get the same minutes as maybe other players around her. Now it is always going to be difficult to find a way into that position, but I think that it's very obvious that she brings something other than her footballing ability, and obviously Mary Earps as well. The fight for the number 1. For England is on. So based on this season, you'd say she deserves it. So yeah, I'm not surprised by any of those call-ups there.
And based on what she's done for England, the past 12 months, well, not 12 months, maybe 6 to 9 months as well. I mean, I appreciate that we've been playing some easy teams where she kept so many clean sheets. Like I do get that, but we played easier teams in the past and still conceded. And, you have to give your credit to Mary. And I think she's probably just had one dodgy game all season for United. The rest have been fantastic. It's definitely been the strongest season in a United shirt, being pushed by Sophie Bagley as well. So great to see Mary, and it's great to hear yourself, Adam. Maybe giving Mary a chance there as England number one, because we say it in the grounds, but obviously we are biased. But I think she deserved that shot. I really do. And I agree with your names as well, Adam. Millie, Aoife, Lucy Staniforth has been selected in the past as well. So, if those weren't injured, potentially they would have got in there. It is hard for Katie to get into that centre midfield. It really is. I think she's doing a cracking job this season. We've seen what she brings to the team on the field. Connor's just touched on what she brings off the field as well. But yeah, to me, the future of the Lionesses has to be Russo and Tooney. I think Tooney's actually started so well. Russo we haven't seen much of in the Lionesses just yet. We just see little bits. We will see a lot more of her. Them two linking up at United will only help the Lionesses. And it's great just to see. It's great to actually go on an international break and actually support some of our players now. Because 3 years ago, we probably could look at Jackie Gronin, Harry Ladd potentially for Wales. And that was pretty much it. Maybe Kirsty Hansen for Scotland. But that was pretty much it. Whereas now, we've been getting over 10 players where we could actually start looking at all these players. And it's really good to see. Before we go, I do just want to touch on the two Manchester clubs going for the race for the top three. So, Adam, I know obviously you know both Manchester clubs fairly well. What are your thoughts going into this final four games, I think now? Is it going to be the red half of Manchester or the blue half of Manchester happy at the end of the season? Oh, Adam, you are muted.
2 years of this. I'm still not got the hang of it. But really interesting. United 4 games left, City 5. City will just be better on goal difference if they win their game in hand. They're already better on. If they make up 4 goals, which I think they probably could do.
Yeah,
it'll be very interesting, especially can't remember off the top of my head. United, of course, have Chelsea last game of the season. City's running is a little bit easier with Reading, Brighton, Leicester, those sorts of teams. West Ham this weekend, and then they have Birmingham. But for City, Reading and Brighton are the sort of teams for City who could always be banana skins. United, their only problem is consistency. It's got to this point before in the season. It's got to other points where they've had great form and then it's just stopped. And there's been that couple of games where it's dipped and then it's come back again. You just can't afford to have that couple of games where it's dipped. Whereas City had a lot of games where it dipped at the start of the season and have now hit the ground running and really a proper top team. I don't know what will happen. It might go down to goal difference. To be honest, if I was betting on it myself, I would probably just go for City just because of that past record of consistency. And with how United are, United have also got more injury issues than City do at the moment. City have people coming back. United just seems to have people going out as it stands. So, yeah, I'm not sure. I do think City might just edge it, but it's so close. And if a team drops 1 point, they're out of that race. That's how it is. That Chelsea game, last game of the season, will be massive. If Chelsea needed it to win the league, and United are winning it to get Europe, then I can't even begin to imagine how big that is.
It's absolutely massive, and Connor, I know you want to jump in shortly, but you are right, and it's I'm glad that the Chelsea game is actually at the end though, because I feel like it could be like a cup final for us. We know that if we win that, we make Europe. Whereas if that Chelsea game was like the 3rd or 4th game from the end, and we drop points there, the damage could potentially be done. And as fans, if we lose on the last game of the season, of course we'll be gutted, especially seeing Chelsea lift that title in front of us as well. But I always think that the last game of the season, when there's so much riding on it, United could just do something at the ordinary and actually win Chelsea at their ground. And I would like to see that. You spoke about the running. We've got Brighton, Villa, West Ham before that. Now, I know you can never predict, but those are games that we should feel confident about going and getting points. But I thought that when we played West Ham away and we ended up drawing and being outplayed in the second half to some extent as well. Man City, I can't see them dropping points. And it reminds me very similar of last season when Arsenal had such a bad start and they just kept on winning after Christmas and we kind of started to fall away because of injuries. I just hope that history doesn't repeat itself there. We ended up being 1 point away from Arsenal after the final game, and it could happen again. Connor, you've looked at the run-in as much as I have, and I agree with Adam. Do you? Like, whoever drops points, it drops up that 1 point, that's it.
Well, the mental thing is we could win all four and still not get it because of goal difference, because City are going to you'd expect City are going to put 5 or 6 past Birmingham. Look at what Chelsea did to Leicester. They could easily, City, go and dismantle Leicester as well. They could be 10 odd goals ahead of us going into the final game of the season. So we might win that and still not get it. We might lose out on goal difference. So I'm not sure. I think the one game to watch is this one at the weekend. It's 11:30, City away at West Ham. I think West Ham have only lost one game at home, and that was to Chelsea, I think. So potentially there, but even still, a draw isn't good enough because I want to go down to Chelsea on the last day with a bit more breathing room. So I'd like to hope that West Ham could put up a bit of a fight, because City, I can't see them. But then again, the one thing I like talking about the kind of top 3 races. When you look at the last day of the season, I really hope it goes to the last day, not just as a United fan, but a fan of growing the game as a whole. Because can you imagine last day of the season, you got United away at Chelsea, Man City are away at Reading. Both teams will be checking the scores, seeing how City are getting on, how can Reading hang. It's going to have that kind of.
Arsenal will be the same, checking on the Chelsea score.
What the men's game have had for so long with the relegation, with the famous kind of, you go back a few years, you look at the relegation battles on the final day, everyone's kind of checking their for what's the score at so-and-so, and that's what this is going to have, I hope. I hope it's, well, I wouldn't be too ashamed if it's wrapped up for United before then, but I do hope it has that kind of, that drama on the last day, because so much can happen. As Adam said, we could affect Chelsea win the league. Chelsea or Arsenal could win the league. United or City get top 3. There's so many different variables. So I think just having that would be good for the game, and it will be one of the most watched, games of this season in terms of TV. If it has that kind of, multiple outcomes on the final day.
Yeah. 100%, yeah. And just before we talk about the new camp very quickly, Adam, just your thoughts on how Skinner's got on this season. I don't think I've had you on the channel to speak about him since there's been many games. I think fans were a little bit divided at the start, but I think a lot of people have come around to respecting him now and seeing what he's done. He's had a big challenge this season. I'm always on this channel defending him, even when we draw and everyone goes off on one. I'm still there defending him. I know Connor's the same. But yeah, what are your thoughts on how Mark Skinner's actually got into this club, and his back was up against the wall from the very start. How do you think he's kind of coped?
Yeah, well, this is what people often forget, is that you're not going to get instant success with a new manager. Often it might be the opposite, because it takes time for them to sort of bring about their game plan and put their own stamp on the team. That'll take you a couple of games. You can afford to do that in the men's game, where you've got 40-odd matches a season. The WSL, it may be harder when, you've got 22 matches. If it takes you 4 of those, or 5 maybe, for a team and manager to really start clicking properly, then that's difficult. But I think the thing about Skinner is that he's one of them who seems here for the long term for United. And that's the important thing. You can't judge him on this first season completely, which, to be fair, has been a good season. They've been good performances. Yes, there's been the odd slip up, but there's always got to be slip ups in a team. You only have to look at Chelsea and Arsenal and how they've slipped up this season as well. It happens. But I think United have done reasonably well. I think if you look at this time next season, when the players have had a full season with Skinner, he's had a chance to bring in people, because, to be fair, this window wasn't the greatest. He wasn't here for most of it. And the winter window, yes, there was business done, but you can't do proper business in a winter window because most people are still under contract. I think if you look at it this time next season, that'll be when you can really say, yeah, that's successful, right man for the job, or maybe we need to start looking for someone else. That's the thing. Managers just take time. Gareth Taylor at Man City is the same. I'm still not 100% sure on him, to be honest. But
I think a lot of City fans are the same.
Now. than how they were this time last season, where things weren't looking good, and they just only late on managed to clinch Champions League. This season, you can say, yeah, there were problems with injuries, but the players have settled in with the manager. They're playing that style of football without the manager really having to drill it in all the time. They can spend the time honing in on making it better rather than just getting it there at the start.
Sanger's just asked that question. Would United be any better placed? I think if City didn't have all those injuries, it could have potentially been wrapped up before now, if I'm perfectly honest. But but they're clawing the way back, aren't they, City? And they're hot on our tails. And as Adam says, they probably are slight favourites. We are going to finish the show just talking about the attendance levels from last night. Nou Camp, Barcelona against Real Madrid, 5-2. What a game it was. It was fantastic for those fans to actually go there and see that kind of game as well, with some fantastic players and fantastic goals as well. Over 90,000, Adam. Beats beats all the European games this season, men's and women's. How did they get that amount of fans to turn up?
Well, it's massive, isn't it? You see people, especially the Mail Online comment section saying, oh, well, they're all there on freebies and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, maybe you're going to have to give people cheap tickets or whatever to incentivize them to come, and they'll come again, because those people who are on cheap tickets, realistically, they're going to spend way more on the food and drink at the game anyway, and you're going to make money from it no matter what. And then they're going to be fans for the future and keep going. Barca, A, have one of the very key things, an incredible football team, and B, they have a men's team who aren't doing very well at all. So people want to watch a Barca team at the Nou Camp who actually have a chance of winning and doing well. And C, Barcelona have fans who support the entire club. They're not just there. It's a bigger thing in Europe of not just supporting the football team when you have multiple under the branch. You have Barca basketball, for example, get quite a lot of people attending them because it's Barca. The whole thing of it being one club is massive. They're there to support anything Barca, and a die-hard Barca, no matter what it is. Hate Real. Andy Mitten's tweet that some might have put out about his Barca supporting kids was brilliant, and how they enjoyed it so much. So yeah, you're gonna get big attendances, but it's just nice to be able to stick it to people and say, look, 91,500 people there, more than any men's match in the entire Europe this season. Try and say that nobody cares.
Yeah, massive. And a great way to end the show there as well. Thank you very much, Adam, for coming on. Really appreciate it. We'll try and get you back on as soon as you're free, maybe towards the end of the season or in the summer, close to the Euros. Absolutely. Thank you very much for coming on. Thank you to everybody in the comments. Connor, plans for the rest of the week, what we got going on. So it's Friday Night Fan Forum tomorrow with Anthony's Odds On show at midday. So we've got 2 shows going out tomorrow. Saturday Night Live, I believe, is with Matt and Ben, 7:30 on Saturday. And then it's match day, Man United against Brighton, where we look forward and not look back, and hopefully get the start of 4 wins out of 4. That's what I'm hoping for, at least. So, lots to look forward to there. That is pretty much it. Thank you again, Adam. We shall see you again very soon. Thank you.
Thanks.